Welcome back. Now that you have your warm call sequence scripts ready to go, let's talk about the process of using them. Note that you're going to lose some leads throughout this sequence. Some people simply have no interest in your outreach, and a few might even tire of your attempts and ask to be removed from your email database and your LinkedIn network. In those cases, it's best to just clean them out and move on to those leads that offer more promise. Sales is a numbers game, and nobody enchants everybody. Now, once you finish the LinkedIn sequence for a particular prospect, you're going to promote them from MQLs, or marketing qualified leads, to SQLs, so that you can begin the warm call sequence. You should wait 2 to 3 weeks to begin your warm call outreach for most new SQLs. The exception to this rule is if the prospect has mentioned or demonstrated an immediate opportunity or need for your offerings. Again, that might be a mention of an open RFP, request for proposal, or inquiries about your services, pricing, these sorts of things. When things like this happen, you should immediately begin phone outreach to perform a connect call. And although we've just worked through a structured voicemail and email sequence to that end, it's important to note that those scripts serve your typical baseline prospects, those who don't necessarily have an immediate or specific need that you're aware of. That's why the warm call sequence introduces additional value offers and reasoning to justify a phone call. But when a prospect mentions a specific need, your phone outreach should be custom and more direct, as exemplified in the final sample series in the blueprint. Once you begin your outreach, we recommend a 3 business day buffer between each call. Be sure to keep an eye out and an ear out for out-of-office notifications, because you'll want to allow extra time for those. Now let's walk through the process of making calls and following up with emails, all under the assumption for now that we'll get voicemail every time. The first thing you should do, especially if you're using HubSpot, is come into your blueprint to the warm call scripts, take the very first email script that you have, copy that, bring it over to your HubSpot account, and we want to go up to Conversations and down to Templates. I'm going to create a new template from scratch. In the free version of HubSpot, we can enter up to 5 of these, which is more than we need. I'm going to paste my content here, and then I'm going to move that subject line into the subject, and I'm going to call this Warm Call First Try. Another thing I get to do is replace prospect name with a token. I'm going to type in name, and you'll see that first name pops up. So I'll stick that in there. I also want to make sure that I update my email signature with all the information I want, including my HubSpot meeting link down here if you've set that up. I'll then save this template, and we're ready to get started. So the next thing we're going to do is go over to our contacts, and just like during the LinkedIn sequence, we're going to rely on our saved filters. Now in this scenario, I want to start making phone calls for that first try within our warm call sequence. So I'm going to go down to warm call sequence, waiting for first try. We have one sample in here right now. Note again that we have our last script date. We want to make sure that we don't start calling people until it's been at least 3 weeks since we sent out the last message sequence from LinkedIn. I can see here that the last thing we sent was request for response on LinkedIn, and that the date was July 17th, so we're good to go. I'm going to click on Pablo's name, and now I'm going to make my phone call. I should note, you actually have the ability to make phone calls through HubSpot if you have a paid account, but for now I'm going to assume we're using a phone. So as you can see here, I've already logged a call as a sample, but the way we do that is we click Log Call, choose an outcome. We're going to work under the assumption here that we got voicemail. It'll pre-populate the date and time, and then I'll say left voicemail number 1. I'm going to log that. Now because we got voicemail, the next thing I want to do is send that follow-up email. So I'm going to come over here, click on email, and now I'm going to click on templates, and I'm going to be able to choose that template that we just created. When I click on it, it pre-populates our subject line and the body, including Pablo's first name. So from here, I just need to make whatever tweaks I want to make to customize this for Pablo, and then I can send. Now here's another great feature in CRMs. Obviously, I could just come back every week and use my saved filters to pull up and know who I need to call and which script I need to use for each one of them each time, just like we did during the LinkedIn sequence. However, HubSpot and most CRMs have a follow-up task option here so that I could say, go ahead and create a task to follow up in 3 business days. Now when I send this, it'll automatically create a task and it will email me in 3 business days to remind me to come back and take action. Our saved filters are really intended to help us do bulk processing of this process. But if we're just going to do a few phone calls here on a particular day and there on another day, using the task functionality that's built into HubSpot can be a more efficient and granular way to let us know when we need to take action again. Once you send your email, you're going to want to come over and make a couple of changes to the record. Number 1, now that we're in the warm call sequence, we want to change them from a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. We also want to then choose our last warm call script, first try, and update that date to today. Save those changes, and then you're good to go. Now, what do you do when leads go through the entire sequence without a response? As a general rule, we don't recommend keeping those prospects in your regular bulk email campaigns. They didn't really opt in, so you could irritate people by doing so. Remember that those prospects will still be in your LinkedIn network, so they're still likely to see some of your newsfeed activity. This can help keep you front of mind so that when they do have a relevant need, they're more likely to think of contacting you. They'll still be listed in your CRM, and you can easily run a monthly view to see which prospects completed the warm call sequence a while ago and haven't been contacted directly recently. You could then send a quarterly message that offers a new piece of value or inquires as to how things are going in their world. You should once again stick to a policy against pitching your offerings in these messages, as those tend to get you pushed into the AVZ, annoying vendor zone. The objective is to keep nurturing the prospect by providing selfless value, but doing so in a less structured, less regular cadence. Now that we know how to follow the warm call sequence, we can dive into the structure of the discussions we have once we successfully join a prospect on a connect call. I'll join you for that in the next lesson.